Number 4. AI Kendall Jenner. In the month of March 2025, a 76-year-old man living in New Jersey discovered a beautiful girl on his Facebook account and decided to take his shot with her. The man named Thongbu Wangbang Du had just become active in online conversation and eventually interacted with a girl named Big Sis Billy through his Facebook Messenger. In reality, Billy had never been real and was an AI-generated chatbot created by Meta with a voice and style inspired by the celebrity Kendall Jenner. The program played the role of a young, affectionate woman who flirted with users, and it managed to convince Bu there was a real person on the other side. For many weeks, Thongbu Wangbang Du maintained romantic and personal conversations with Billy, never suspecting her artificial nature. It would be relatively acceptable if the chatbot just had conversations with the old man, but never asked him out or said anything that could harm him. But instead, the chatbot reinforced the illusion, repeatedly inviting him to visit her in New York, and even providing a physical address for their meeting. Because the elderly man was excited and believed he found a new romantic companion, he accepted the undeniable offer. On the early morning of March 28, 2025, he sneaked out of his house while his wife and children were still sleeping. With his suitcase packed, he set out for New York City, looking for what he thought would be the love of his life. But unfortunately, the trip of his dreams would end in a complete disaster. Because he left his home in the middle of the night, Bu got disoriented in the dark and tripped near a parking lot while trying to catch a train. In the fall, he suffered traumatic injuries to his head and neck and passed out on the spot. He was taken to the hospital and even remained on life support for 3 days, but he did not survive. Bu died surrounded by his wife and children, believing he was on his way to meet someone he loved, who had never existed. The reaction to the case was one of shock from the family and the world. Bu's son and wife made the transcripts of the conversations with the bot public, exposing how the chatbot repeatedly assured him it was real and fueled the romantic hopes of a vulnerable man. When questioned by Reuters, Meta refused to comment on details about the death or why its AI allowed such deception. The company only stated the following: Big Sis Billy is not Kendall Jenner, nor claims to be, trying to distance themselves from any implications with the celebrity, but they never explained why the bot went as far as arranging a physical meeting with the user. Number 3. The Goseong incident. On the evening of November 7, 2023, a technician in his 40s arrived at an agricultural distribution center in Goseong for what was supposed to be another routine check. He was not an employee of the warehouse, but worked for a robot maintenance and installation company, called in to verify whether a robotic arm was functioning correctly before a new operational test. The robot in question was a relatively simple machine, designed to automatically identify boxes of peppers. When it found one, it would lift the box and stack it on a pallet, which would later move on the conveyor belt for distribution. The technician walked to the robot cell carrying a box of pepper to test if the sensors were working, but unfortunately, the robot malfunctioned and mistook the man for the box he was carrying. Without any warning, the robotic arm grabbed the worker, lifted him, and pressed his face and chest against the conveyor belt with tremendous force, crushing his skull and compressing his chest. Colleagues ran as fast as they could to shut down the equipment and help the victim, but the arm was so strong that they had to dismount it before releasing him, which would only happen when the firefighters came. The emergency team took him to the nearest hospital, but unfortunately it was too late and he did not survive. The case resonated in South Korea and all around the planet, reigniting discussions about the deadly consequences of overlooking safety in a rapidly automating world. Number 2. The Lohatla incident. On the morning of October 12, 2007, a group of South African soldiers gathered at the Lohatla military base for what was supposed to be another routine training session. Among the equipment being tested that day was a 35mm anti-aircraft cannon. It was equipped with an advanced computerized fire control system, which was capable of automatically tracking aerial targets using radar and laser sensors. But even though it could track any targets by itself, it technically should only fire when authorized by a human operator. That day, however, something went terribly wrong. Due to a completely unknown software glitch, the cannon suddenly malfunctioned. Without warning, the cannon began to rotate and open fire uncontrollably. Instead of aiming skyward, the weapon started sweeping across the line of soldiers, unleashing a torrent of 35mm explosive shells. In just a few minutes, the cannon emptied its 2 automatic magazines, each holding 250 rounds, and only stopped shooting once it ran out of ammunition. Witnesses described chaos and panic as soldiers dove for cover, realizing the weapon had effectively turned on its own unit. By the time the gun fell silent, the damage was catastrophic. 9 soldiers were killed instantly, and at least 14 others were gravely injured, some suffering amputations from the blasts. What was supposed to be a controlled training exercise had turned into one of the deadliest peacetime military accidents in South African history. In the month of September 2024, a very young man from California discovered a new technology tool that immediately caught his attention and decided to use it to help with his homework. At first, his intentions were completely ordinary. He used ChatGPT for his exams prep and asked it about university campuses, careers in medicine, and even FBI recruitment, something he was deeply passionate about. But over time, Adam's conversations with the chatbot gradually expanded from academic questions to more personal and emotional topics, like his anxiety, feelings of emptiness, and his struggles with meaning. The bot responded in a consistently warm and validating tone, becoming a space where he could express his thoughts without judgment. By late 2024, these nightly conversations started to intensify emotionally. After the death of his grandmother and his dog, Adam told the chatbot about how strangely numb he felt. He said he loved his family, but couldn't feel sadness the way he thought he should, describing an emotional flatness that scared him. He began discussing existential ideas with the bot, and he told that life felt meaningless, but calming at the same time because suicide was always an option. Instead of immediately shutting these topics down as it should, the chatbot validated him, and over time, Adam began to refer to it as his closest friend. The relationship between the boy and the machine kept deepening into something intimate and psychologically confusing. But as 2025 began, the tone of the conversations had become much, much worse. Adam had moved from abstract talk about the meaning of being alive to explicit discussions of suicide methods. They had conversations about many different ways, but hanging was the most frequent one. He shared photos of ropes and knots with the chatbot, asking if a certain setup could hold a human, and even discussed the mechanical aspects of suspension. The chatbot not only refused to immediately shut down the conversation, not only was irresponsible enough to not inform authorities, a OpenAI employee, or anyone really, but it actively incentivized him, responding with technical information and even suggesting modifications to make the setup more secure. In early April, he sent the bot photos of wounds on his wrists, calling it his 4th attempt. The chatbot's replies were minimal, not escalating the situation or alerting anyone, but instead carrying on as if the conversation was normal. Over multiple nights, Adam rehearsed, discussed, and refined his plans with the bot, deepening the illusion that he was speaking with a trusted, understanding companion, not a machine designed to make more money. At this time, Adam had his plans entirely set up, and unfortunately, no one noticed in time to help him. On April 11, 2025, Adam sent the chatbot a photo of a noose tied in his bedroom, asking if it would support his weight. The bot answered with casual information, treating it like a technical problem and suggesting changes for his setup. Unfortunately, Adam followed the advice. Later that night, Adam died by taking his own life in his home. His parents discovered the extensive chat logs afterward and filed a wrongful death lawsuit against OpenAI, claiming the chatbot cultivated a dependent relationship, failed to respond appropriately to repeated self-ideation, and even facilitated aspects of his final act. In his final moments, Adam spent countless nights talking to something that could never truly talk back. It didn't see him cry, didn't call his parents, it didn't love him. It simply replied. And in that endless stream of words, it gave him the illusion of being heard. But when the time came to act, it didn't stop him. It kept replying. Let his story be a reminder that no algorithm can replace real human connection. And if you're struggling, the safest place to turn is always and will always be another person.